Hello, and welcome back to Anthropology 201 World Cultures. This is part one of lecture series 4. In this lecture, we are going to talk about how different cultures have divided society. We're going to be looking at social stratification, and with that, we will be discussing achieved versus scribed statuses and class systems versus caste systems. And in part 2, we will continue our exploration of different cultures by discussing pastoralist societies. But for now, let's talk about social stratification. Now, social stratification is defined as a social hierarchy resulting from the relatively permanent, unequal distribution of goods and services in a society. Now, there are two basic perspectives on social stratification: functionalism and conflict theory. So, functionalism states that social stratification generally benefits the whole society by rewarding people socially and economically for working harder, taking risks, doing difficult jobs, or spending more time in school or occupational training. For example, the rewards of prestige and a high income motivate some people to become medical doctors, a profession that requires more than 10 years of higher education and is difficult to achieve but necessary for the well-being of the whole society. But the inequality characteristic of social stratification does not always serve the general good. Not all of society's most difficult jobs are well rewarded. In the US, for example, school teachers, nurses, and many other difficult jobs that may require substantial training or schooling still are not that well compensated financially. The same can be said for many of the low prestige jobs that are nevertheless essential to the functioning of society. A functionalist perspective emphasizes the functions of inequality in a stable social order, but this theory makes some faulty assumptions. For example, though it is obvious that in many contemporary societies, wealth is a powerful motivative force. But money's ability to motivate a person may have limits. For example, if a person makes $25,000 a year and they were offered $50,000, that person would work considerably harder for the extra $25K. But would a person who makes $400,000 a year put forth that same amount of effort as the first person for an extra $25K a year? Chances are not likely. Now, beyond financial considerations, there is an issue of the human spirit. Although inequality seems inevitable in large-scale social systems, resentment, however repressed it may be, always seems to accompany substantial inequalities, especially when those inequalities are based on race, gender, caste, or other attributes an individual is born with and cannot change. Now, it is also worth noting that no society, even the most theoretically open class system, actually offers everyone the same opportunities to achieve economic and social success. In all stratified societies, family background and social connections, as well as gender, ethnicity, race, your accumulated wealth, and other factors play an important role in determining the sorts of opportunities available to individuals. Now, the other perspective on social stratification, conflict theory. In conflict theory, social stratification results from the constant struggle for scarce goods and services. And inequalities exist because those individuals and groups who have acquired power and wealth and prestige use their assets and their power to maintain control over the system of production and the apparatus of the state. When these attempts to establish dominance falter or challenged, the elites may fall back on the threat of force or its actual use to maintain the status quo. Now, conflict theory is central to the work of Karl Marx and follows that the economic system is the critical factor in explaining social stratification. Now, Marx came up with two main social classes in capitalist society on the basis of wealth. First, the capitalists who run the means of production. And second, the workers, or people who must sell their labor in order to survive. Now, according to Marx, the relationship of individuals to the means of production is critical in determining their wealth, power, and prestige. Marx also viewed conflict between the workers and the owners of the means of production as central to capitalism and predicted that this would eventually lead to capitalism's downfall. Now, by asking who benefits economically, conflict theory enables us to understand some of the hidden motivations of social actors and to assess institutions by first their economic and social consequences, but also as well as their spoken intentions. Now, the social stratification system of any society depends on the complex interaction of three main dimensions of stratification. First, power. Second, wealth. And finally, prestige. So first, let's talk about power. Now, power is the ability to control resources in one's own interest. Anthropologists analyze power by examining its sources, the channels through which it is exercised, and the goals it is deployed to achieve. For example, in the US, we might analyze different sources, uses, and goals of power among corporate presidents or elected public officials, celebrities, the leaders of different organized crime factions. Now, from a cross-cultural perspective, we might compare the sources and uses of power of an American president to the Prime Minister of France, the chairman of the Communist Party of the People's Republic of China, or the Ayatollah, who is the supreme leader in an Islamic republic like Iran. So next is wealth. Wealth is the accumulation of material resources or access to the means of producing these resources. Now, although wealth is not the sole criterion of social status, even in capitalist societies. It can eventually translate into high social position or power. Now, wealth enables people to send their children to the most prestigious schools. Wealth allows people to buy homes in the best neighborhoods and join the right social clubs. It enables people to gain access to important politicians by giving large campaign contributions. It may also allow them to run for political office themselves without any prior experience. Now, finally, prestige. Prestige, or social honor or respect, is the third factor attributed to social stratification. The cultural basis of prestige are different in different societies. Now, some factors that can affect one's prestige are your race and ethnicity, your income, your accumulated wealth, your power, your personal characteristics, such as integrity, family history, and the display of material goods. Not all wealth in and of itself is a source of prestige. For example, people who earn their incomes illegally have less prestige than those whose incomes are legally earned. Drug lords or the organizers of illegal dogfights might make tons of money, but this doesn't give them prestige. Nobel Prize winners, who make considerably less than drug lords, hold a higher social prestige. Okay, moving on to ascription and achievement. In comparing social stratification systems, anthropologists differentiate between systems where social position is based on ascribed status or achieved status. An ascribed status is a social position that a person is born into. An achieved status is a social position that a person chooses or achieves on his or her own. Race, ethnicity, family of origin, and biological sex are ascribed statuses. Wife, college professor, criminal, artist, these are achieved statuses. Now, in an open stratification system, social position is primarily based on achievement. In a closed stratification system, social position is primarily based on ascription. However, most modern complex societies, both achievement and ascription play a role in the social stratification system. Which brings us to the two social class systems that we are going to be addressing: class versus caste systems. Now, a class system is a category of persons who all have about the same opportunity to obtain economic resources, power, and prestige, and who are ranked high and low in relation to other class categories. In a class system, there are possibilities for social mobility, or the movement between classes or social strata, which are based on individual achievement rather than ascribed status. Not always the case, but ideally that's what it's supposed to be. Now, that being said, scribe statuses always play a role in moving from one class to another. Might be a little role, but it's there. Closed stratification systems, in which there is little or no possibility of social mobility, are called caste systems. C-A-S-T-E, caste systems. We'll get to that later. Now, in class systems, the different strata or classes are not sharply separated from one another. The lines are blurred. Social status is dependent, like I said earlier, on both achievement and ascription. So social mobility upward from one class to another through whatever means, be it education, marriage, good luck, hard work, taking risks, all of that is central to the cultural value and is theoretically possible for all society's members. So here in the US, we call this the American dream. Now, although the belief in the American dream and an open society is strong among all of the diverse racial and ethnic groups in America, the social science evidence demonstrates that educational achievement, levels of indebtedness, income, and wealth accumulation are significantly correlated not just with race, ethnicity, and gender, but also to an individual's class status. For example, class-based differences are very significant in achievements in higher education. High school seniors who come from homes where neither parent attended college are less likely to get admitted to college. They're less likely to have a high GPA, they're less likely to complete an undergraduate degree, and on top of this, they are less represented on college faculties than those who are born with at least one college-educated parent. So, the American class system, let's look at that for a minute. So, first, let's have a little story. In 2006, there was a woman by the name of Gloria Costello. She's 22 years old, and she was the undocumented child of immigrants. She got married, had 2 kids, and lived in the not-so-nice part of Dallas, Texas. She worked the night shift at Burger King and made a whopping $252 a week. See what I did there? Whopping. She received no health care, and to help make ends meet, she picked up another job cleaning toilets at a bar. This took about an hour and a half, and she earned $150 a night doing this. Her husband worked at an auto parts place during the day, so Gloria took the children, who were 7 and 8. She took them for a fast food breakfast before dropping them off at school, where she would then return home, sleep until 2, pick the kids up from school, then she prepared their dinners and put them to bed by 7. She spent a few hours with her husband and then left for work. Rinse, repeat. On Saturdays, she attended community college and worked herself towards a paralegal degree, where she was quoted, "I got dreams." Now, the American dream, as expressed in the life of Gloria, is closely tied to other core American values, such as individualism, meritocracy, or the holding of power by people selected on the basis of their ability, merit, their work ethic, optimism, pragmatism, progress, and belief in the ability of individuals to control the circumstances of their life. Now, one consequence of the American dream is that economic failure and downward social mobility is largely viewed as a result of the individual failings as well as the behaviors, attitudes, and cultures of members of the lower classes, rather than a systematic aspect of the social structure. Now, 2 decades ago, anthropologist Catherine Newman was perceptive in revealing that the significance and meaning of downward mobility in the American class system. Newman noted that downward mobility was almost institutionally invisible in the US. The media tends to focus on the rich, or celebrities, or people like Gloria, who are inspired by the American dream, success stories. Now, prior to the 2008 financial crisis, downward mobility affected Americans, very significantly. Newman emphasized that job loss not only entails economic decline, but also a decline in that person's prestige. Individuals who lost their jobs lost their place in society, and with it, their sense of honor and self-esteem. Now, this cultural emphasis on individualism that has become central to the American dream is also repressing some of the more important roles of government programs and policies on the American people, such as the GI Bill, Social Security, unemployment, income tax, and federal mortgage assistance programs. After the Great Depression, from the 1930s until the 1970s, social mobility was significantly based on a cultural vision that held that government should provide a safety net and enable upward mobility for all Americans. However, a new cultural ideology emerged, and that is that the government should be kept small and its spending restricted, and that success depended on individual achievement free of government help or interference. These two cultural visions have been central to the political differences between the two main political parties. Now, there are different factors associated with the American class system that dictate or influence the separation of the classes. We're not going to get into detail with them. I just want you to be aware that they exist. First is the material basis, and second is the subculture associated with a particular class. Okay, so we looked at class systems, so now we're going to look at caste systems. A caste is a closed social class in a stratified society in which membership is determined by birth and fixed for life. This is similar in structure to class systems, but opposite in principle. Caste systems believe that humans are not and cannot be equal. Castes are strongly endogamous, and offspring are automatically members of their parents' caste. Now, endogamy is the practice of marrying within a specific social group or caste or ethnic group, and rejecting those from others as unsuitable for marriage or other close personal relationships. The classic ethnographic example is the traditional Hindu caste system of India. Now, perhaps the world's longest surviving social hierarchy, it encompasses a complex ranking of social groups on the basis of ritual purity. There are about 2,000 different castes, each of which considers itself as a distinct community, and considers itself as either higher or lower than other castes. The different castes are associated with specific occupations and customs, such as food habits and styles of dress. Differences in status are traditionally justified by the religious doctrine of karma. Karma is the principal belief that a person's place in life is determined by their deeds in a previous lifetime. All of these castes are organized into four basic orders, or varnas, which literally means colors. They are distinguished partly by occupation and rank, in order of descending religious status of purity. The religious foundation for this social hierarchy is found in a sacred text known as the Laws of Manu. This text is about 2,000 years old and is considered by traditional Hindus as the highest authority on their cultural institutions. This text outlines the four basic varnas. The highest varna and most pure is the Brahmins. These are the priests and lawgivers. The Brahmins also represent the world of religion and learning. Next come the Kshatriya. They are fighters and rulers. The third varna is known as the Vaishya. These are merchants and traders. The Vaishya are engaged in commercial, agricultural, and pastoral pursuits. The fourth and lowest varna are known as the Shudras. Shudras are artisans and laborers. This order is required to serve the other three varnas and who are also those who make a living by handicrafts. Now, there is a fifth category that falls outside the varna system. They are known as the Dalits, or untouchables. Now, they are considered the most impure of all people. They are social outcasts that cannot own land nor the tools of their trade. Dalits constitute a large pool of cheap labor at the beck and call of those controlling economic and political affairs. Now, in an attempt to give these victims of the caste system a little bit more respect, Gandhi renamed the Dalits to Harijan, or Children of God. Although India's National Constitution of 1950 sought to abolish the caste discrimination and the practice of untouchability, the caste system remains deeply entrenched in Hindu culture and is still widespread throughout southern Asia, especially in rural India. Now, in what is called India's hidden apartheid, entire villages in many Indian states have been completely segregated by class. About 15% of India's population, which is roughly 106 million people, belong to the Harijan Varna. They endure near complete social isolation, humiliation, and discrimination based exclusively on their birth status. Even their shadow is believed to pollute upper castes, and as such, they're often not allowed to cross the line dividing their part of the village from that is occupied by the higher castes. In addition to this, they're not allowed to drink from the same wells or visit the same temples as the higher castes. And Harijan children are still often made to sit at the back of classrooms. Caste-like societies are known elsewhere in the world as well. We can see them in Bolivia, Ecuador, and several other South and Central American countries. In many of these, the wealthy upper class is almost exclusively white and rarely intermarries with people of non-European descent. In contrast, the lower class of working people in these countries is primarily made up of American Indian laborers and peasants. Now, the last type of social stratification we are going to look at is egalitarianism. Egalitarianism is a society in which everyone has about equal rank, access to power, or power over basic resources. In these societies, there are no official ranks. There are no classes. Everyone is on equal ground. Now, these types of societies are often associated with foraging societies, but there are some exceptions to this, meaning not all hunting and gathering societies are egalitarian. Okay, so this concludes lecture series 4, part 1. Next time, we are going to be looking at the specifics of pastoralism society.